Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. So I'm with the gang again, my college basketball experts, Austin Taylor, Colin, Ryan, got the whole crew. Make sure you check out part one. We actually broke down Texas basketball season, what we look like in this bracket, March Madness starting up this week, and overall thoughts on the entire bracket. We picked our Final Fours, we picked our national champions. So check that out. I think it's going to be a really fun and educational watch, depending on who you ask. So check out part one. We're sponsored by Last Stand Hats. Shout out to laststandhats.com/fanatic. Fanatic 10, hit that at checkout. That gets you 10% off on all merch and apparel. And we just announced a really cool little bracket contest that we're doing. First time we're doing this at FP, but hit up Fanatic Perspective subs on ESPN. And Last Stand Hats, we're just doing a bracket contest. So whoever wins, get $50 gift card to Last Stand Hats to use on the website. So laststandhats.com/fanatic, Fanatic 10 at checkout. The reason why we're doing a part two is because we all know this basketball team in terms of the men's organization, since the firing of Chris Beard, has been led by interim head coach Rodney Terry. And, you know, we've finished with really one of our most successful seasons this year, since I can remember, honestly, in a good while, as a 2 seed, winning the conference tournament over Kansas, the Big 12 championship. And it's left us as a fan base with a very interesting conversation before this tournament starts on the long-term future of Rodney Terry and whether or not the tournament impacts what decision we make. I'm pretty sure a lot of people feel that way. And I know a lot of people in the fan base feel as though, hey, Rodney Terry, thank you for your service, but we want to pursue XYZ coach. I think it's a nuanced and very layered discussion, but I know you guys are, there's nobody I respect more than the three of you in college basketball and understanding the inner workings of the administration, what Chris Del Conte is tasked with. I want to have a very open and honest conversation about what we should do, as well as keeping respect to Rodney Terry and honestly being thankful for the job he's done, as well as the entire Texas coaching staff, with all of the uncertainty going on, leading this team, right? And we have a lot of seniors on this team, Brock, Marcus, all these guys, and they've given a professional effort and been the glue, but we got to talk about the coach and the future of the program. So, Ryan, I'm actually going to start with you. My question to you is, how would you, if you're in Chris Del Conte's shoes, which is a tough spot, but he makes a lot of money, how are you evaluating this? How are you making that decision in regards to Rodney Terry and the future of the Texas basketball program?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question. I think there's two sides to every coin, and I can look at this in both lights. And I want to give examples of each. But how Chris has to think about this is looking at the full body of work. Obviously, what happened in December, 90% of the teams would have fell apart. 95% of the teams would have fell apart. You had a coach that kept those guys together, and that matters when you talk about the grand scheme of coaching. That is half the battle when you're dealing with 18 to now 24-year-olds, I guess, not 22-year-olds. Thanks, COVID and NIL. So anyways, being able to do that in this environment, in this conference, that's unprecedented. He has a term in the coin, hot rod, the running horns, for a reason. It's because he was able to keep us in a good spot throughout the year. I'll look at one side and the other, and then I'm curious to get your thoughts. You look at it from taking Texas Tech as the example. Beard leaves. Mark Adams is deemed the mastermind behind the success at Texas Tech. They take a very experienced, and to me, one of the best teams in college basketball last year, pretty far in the tournament for their perspective and what they did in the regular season. And then you look at what happened this year, and it's just a complete 360. Now, granted, Mark Adams didn't really have head coaching experience prior at some very, very smaller schools, but nothing like, Coach Terry has with Fresno State and UTEP. So you look at that as the bad. Here's where I'm going to keep it, because I've actually shifted my goalpost a little bit forward based on how this is finished. He goes to the Sweet 16. I think you give him a short-term deal at minimum, and you look at him and you hire him. That's where I switch, because, you look at first and second round, that's where we got to get out of. We haven't been able to do that. I think that's a win. To Austin's point earlier, we would be happy with getting to the Final Four is probably where we're setting expectations, but you're talking about what he's able to do and giving him a shot, because at Texas, he's going to have more resources. UTEP and Fresno State are not pushing out NIL money to go get basketball recruits. So he's going to be able to pull in the guys. I think he keeps Ron Holland and AJ Johnson if he stays. You keep the guys that are here, Terrio, Dylan, and you roll the ball out again and you go with that group, and you get a few guys from the portal. The other thing to factor in is you have the Moody Center. That's, that type of facility is going to help recruit. He's obviously one of the better recruits in the nation in terms of what he's been able to do. That's why I think those two things, you factor that in with Del Conte and where we finish. I think you give him that, but the cake is baked philosophy is also there too with our team, right? They're old. So I think you take that out of the equation. They're player led this year, but I just feel I love what he's providing and the energy he's given. And I think that he deserves a shot at the very least on a short-term deal, he get to the Sweet 16.
I love how you ended off with the cake this bake analogy that Colin threw out there on Twitter the other day. That cracked me up. Shout out to Chuck Strong and the cake is baked. Colin, we've all been talking in the group chat, so the floor is yours, brother. Where do you stand on this present day?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the one on the left side if the other three are on the right here. I think the way that you look at it is this season needs to be considered in a vacuum, and I think the games played post-Rice need to be considered in a vacuum as well. I think when you take a look at what we have and what we had in terms of the cake is baked analogy that you just used, you had 5 basically seniors you honored on senior night. You had guys who in an athletic article came together and basically said, it's our turn to kind of go win games. In that article, it wasn't, oh, we're relying on Coach Terry to take us there. It was, we're going to go do this. And then ultimately, to Ryan's point on him changing his goalpost to the Sweet 16, if you take a look at the team, I think all of us had us going to the Elite 8. So if our expectation is to go to the Elite 8, you take a look at really basically until TJ Ford goes to the Final Four, Rick Barnes, Shaka Smart, and now, Chris Beard 1 year, Rodney Terry this year, we've not hit the expectations of what our seeding is or what our kind of fan expectations are as well. So if he can't at least get to what we think he should be or what the tournament kind of seeded us as, which is going to the Elite 8 or to some people's expectations, the Final Four, why are we rewarding somebody for a short period of time where the players are coming together to do a certain thing? Now, if you take a look forward, do we have a great option? I think the question was, what does Chris Del Conte do? I don't think there's a lot of great options out there. So if you do hit the expectation, you go to the Elite 8, maybe you do get a 1-year deal to say, okay, we'll bring in Ron Holland, we'll bring in AJ, and we'll see what else you can do with the portal. And then you're really seeing, okay, that second year of Mark Adams, that second year possibly of Rod Terry. I think that'll give you a much better expectation of where we're going, rather than, you take a look at everybody saying, oh, these players love Roddy Terry. Well, players specifically in football love Charlie Strong. Players love Shaka Smart. What did that get for us? Not really anything. So I think those are the things that kind of I'm considering when thinking about the coaching hire.
So before I get to Austin, one thing I think from my vantage point in terms of expectations is so many times in college basketball, people don't even come close. I mean, we look at the North Carolina Tar Heels this year, in my opinion, one of the greatest disappointments in modern college basketball history, considering what they brought back. And so, I do give a little bit more weight to at least getting the 2 seed, winning the Big 12 tournament, depending on who you ask. I know we go up and down on who that matters to and whatnot, but I know that always mattered to Coach K. I know it always matters to Bill Self and some of the other guys of establishing momentum. I don't think there's a negative from winning your conference tournament, especially playing in a conference that we play in. And here's kind of just interjecting this real quick before I get to Austin. Colin, I really agree with you on that last point in terms of what's the alternative, because I'm not just trying to bring anybody. If we're bringing in somebody, it needs to be somebody where I'm like, there's no question that this is the move. Like, there's no question across the board from a resume standpoint, from a momentum standpoint, from all aspects, because optics are going to matter here too with how Rodney Terry's been being treated, considering his own experience and brand at the University of Texas in both of his time here. I mean, it's not just the players that are lobbying for him. It's people like TJ Ford and some of the other guys that played here in the 2000s where we were, a strong program. He has a lot of people advocating for him. Now, he can't go lay an egg against Colgate and think that, brother's going to still back him up either. So we got to weigh this out. But, Austin, or Colin, if you want to respond to anything I just said, and then we'll get to Austin.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you, right? Like, there are people in the program and there are people like the players that will, I think vouch for the coach, but it's not their job to go hire a basketball coach, right? It's not TJ Ford's job to go hire the University of Texas basketball coach. It's Chris Del Conte. What we did have, and what is, I think, most disappointing to me in a very successful season, is the guy who, was the University of Texas basketball coach prior, right? You take a look at a guy who basically just got 5 minutes for fighting and is going to go coach Ole Miss, but was a Texas alum, coached here, had the ties here. It's going to be very difficult to replicate that, one, being a fantastic basketball coach, but also I think one of the reasons the Moody Center was so great early on the season was because that person was also a University of Texas alum. And it's going to be very difficult to find that combination of kind of head coach. I think the biggest name you look at could possibly be Royale Ivy. Royale has not been a head coach anywhere, especially not in college basketball. So, I think it's going to be very difficult to replicate that situation.
Austin, what's up, man?
Yeah, everybody here has made awesome points. Even you, Colin, with your point on players love Charlie Strong and Shaka Smart. That's something that, I was ready to come in here guns blazing and be like, look at the way the players respond and XYZ. And while all that is true, yeah, that doesn't buy you wins as much as we want it to. I think, a thing that stood out for me, in terms of backing Rodney Terry, and then I'll kind of do what Ryan did, just kind of give you the other side of my thoughts. Was in Brock Cunningham's answer in that post-game press conference the other day. It was basically, I forgot what Austin American-Statesman reporter asked, but it was like, give your 2 cents on why RT should be the head guy. And without hesitation, Brock grabbed the mic and was like, he's the same guy every single day, no matter if we have an amazing win or a terrible loss. And that's the one thing you need to be successful as a college coach. And I think we all know, you alluded to it earlier, Stephen, there's countless humongous contracts that don't work out. And that could be for, XYZ reasons. But how many head coaches do we see even today that are just so up and down? When it's going good, there's nothing better. We'll never lose again. And when it's going bad, we're going to the CBI. It's so up and down roller coaster. And that's something from the outside looking in, I've seen, you asked the question, you said, how do you feel about this right now? Well, right now, I feel great. Texas just beat Kansas by a combined almost 40 points in the last 8 days. So I'm riding the RT train hard. Now, if they go lay an egg to Colgate, everybody and their mom is going to say, no chance, that's not the guy, right? Recency bias is just so pivotal in this conversation. But I do want to give a shout out just to him and his staff, Brandon Chappelle, Bob Donewald, Chris Ogden, Steve McClain, all those guys. Those are Beard's guys that he brought in, but they've kind of morphed into a big, I think he said it after one of the games, maybe Oklahoma State was just like, I'm not the head coach. I got 4 head coaches, and they all just do such a good job of keeping this group together. So, and then to your last point, it's who else out there is better. I'm not going to name names that we've heard in our group. I'm not going to air that out there, but I will say I don't think there was any name on there that any of us, all four of us, are just jumping out of our shoes for, and that's just stuff that we hear from people that we know are plugged in and looped in. But and who knows? But like you said, Steven, it better be a bona fide stud, if it's going to come in and take a guy that took Texas to the Elite Eight or Final Four. Who knows? I mean, a national championship, we don't know, but. I agree with Colin's point a lot. That has me thinking, the players do love him. They respect him. But you also wonder about the repercussions, and I'll wrap this up quickly. If a Rodney Terry leaves, does Texas land Ron Holland? Do they get AJ Johnson? Does, Dylan Mitchell come back? Does Arterio come back? I mean, you could be looking at a completely empty cupboard. And to be honest, what Chris Beard did with the transfer portal here, I've never seen anything like it in college basketball, especially with the talent that Texas brought in. So that's kind of two sides of where I'm at.
I mean, Chris Beard, when he was at Tech, and I'll never forget him saying this, I think it was actually after they played Virginia in the Natty, but he had mentioned building your program in 1 to 2 year increments versus the old mindset, the Roy Williams mindset of a 3 to 4 year program, right? And I think where a lot of his success came, and we have been the beneficiaries of that, even with him being fired, is he was a visionary in the aspect of where college basketball was heading. And that's where we are today, right? With the transfer portal, when you're able to go and get my guy, our friend and our hero, Serge Rice, out of the transfer portal, who is as serious about basketball as I've seen from a footwork standpoint, technical standpoint, everything he does on the floor, as well as his enthusiasm for playing and the professional effort he gives every single time, whether he has a good game or not. I just love the way his demeanor is. That's somebody that you couldn't go just get a few years ago unless it was like, a different type of scenario. So to just be able to add pieces like that to your roster is important. I want to make one quick point, and then I want to ask kind of a general question, because my point is this. I don't think we're at a point right now where are we removing RT or not? I think it's at a point of, to what Ryan said, do you give him a short-term contract, or do you do a nationwide search that includes Rodney Terry, where you make him interview, you make him kind of give his, we in our world of sales, we call it 30, 60, 90 plan, but really this would be like a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan, right? What is your outlook for the program? And I think that's where we kind of are in our fan base right now, because there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, why not just give him that short-term contract now? But if you give him that contract now, you're not doing your search. And I think there's other people like Colin who's saying, hey, let's wait and do our due diligence and do a search. I want to bring the candidates in, let's talk, let's go through proper vetting and act like we're doing a full-on search. So that's kind of where I think this falls. One thing I've heard, though, is we look at a college coach from a coaching perspective, X's and O's, developing guys, whole thing, recruiting, but people have thrown out this term of program builders. And so I want to kind of just ask y'all, what does that exactly mean? And do y'all have a definition of because I feel like that's what people are kind of using as like a bar set apart, but I don't know what that means. If anybody can help me with what a program builder is.
I mean, you take a look at Bill Self. Bill Self is a program builder. I think he, obviously took over from Roy Williams, and Kansas has a rich basketball history. But if you were to, there were people who don't even know Roy Williams was the head coach at the University of Kansas. That's what tells you what a program builder is, right? And yeah, Roy obviously is a legendary head coach in his own right, and did a lot of things for the University of North Carolina. And I bet a whole bunch of people don't know who the head coach prior to Roy Williams was at the University of North Carolina. But somebody like that, in terms of Bill Self, is a program building coach. The other guy who I would love, obviously, to sit in the seat is unlikely because he's sitting in the CBS seat, is Jay Wright. You take a look at Villanova. I can't tell you the coach prior to Jay Wright at Villanova. that's another program builder for me. So those are the guys I kind of think about when you think of program building coaches in college basketball.
Yeah, I'll stay in the Big 12. I mean, Scott Drew comes to mind, was at Baylor, for 20 plus years, but came to Baylor, leaking off of, one of the saddest cases in college basketball history, to be honest. And I mean, they're national champions and they have something that Texas doesn't have, Baylor, the little Baptist school in Waco. So, and he's done that through years and years of building and getting his guys and keeping that nucleus of a coaching staff that just works together so cohesively. And I mean, I can't remember the last time, Baylor played Texas and I'm like, yep, Texas, this is an easy W. I mean, it's the foundation of your program. And I know it's so coach speak and cliche to say, but all of these program builders, Bill Self, Jay Wright, Scott Drew, I mean, you could even say Chris Beard at Texas Tech. What's one common theme that all of their teams had? They were just so tough and so gritty. And it's just that just shows how much you love your teammates when you can play off the ball, do the dirty work, stuff like that. So, and I, we've all seen it firsthand. The difference between a team that wants to be there and a team that doesn't want to be there. And you see it all the time and you're just like, man, you never want to be the team that's not as tough as the other one. But yeah, I mean, building a program, it's not for everybody. I mean, look at Shaka Smart's success before Texas and look at his success now. And I'm not going to be the guy to sit here and lie and say coaching at Texas is easy. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. That's why, we see some coaches roll in and out of here with great pedigrees and great resumes, and, the city of Austin and what UT entails, it chews them up and spits them out. So it is not for everybody. And I know, people will point to RT's, what he did at UTEP and his previous stops, but that was a long time ago. That was then. This is now. And again, it's so recency bias. It's kind of a piggyback question, but am I feeling personally as amped up about RT as I am right now if Texas went one and done in the Big 12 tournament? Probably not, but they won the whole thing. So I'm feeling really good about myself, and you guys are probably too. So I don't know. Recency is so big. We could probably have the same discussion about 3 weeks from now, and who knows, our answers might be very different. So
I think we are going to have the same discussion 3 weeks from now.
Perfect.
Ryan, don't you agree with that, Ryan?
I agree. And y'all gave some awesome personas. I mean, that's the persona of program builders. I'll give some of the recipe, right? What you need. You need to be able to roll in and roll out 5-star freshmen who can contribute early, right? You look at all the teams you just talked about, always have those young guns who are able to play. But then you also have the blend, especially in the age of NIL. Program builder entails being able to recruit the portal. Now, how much was it that it was Beard that recruited the portal, or was it RT? It could have been RT, and he's still going to be able to do that, and he might be able to get the next SJR, the next Timmy, the next Marcus. I think that's still going to be there. The other component that I think you look at all those stops, like with Baylor, Austin, you mentioned, in Kansas, Colin, what you mentioned, they keep a bulk of their assistant coaches for a long period of time. With Shaka, he actually rolled in a few assistants and rolled out during his time here. I think that's pivotal. Tang was there with Drew for how long?
21 years.
An important piece of it. Yeah, that's an important piece of it. So as you evaluate, like you mentioned, Stephen, and go through that due diligence, can you keep this same staff with RT? Because you're right, they have a wide variety of experience coaching overseas, being head coaches for national teams. Like, you look at the resume of the coaching staff, it's pretty impressive. So if you're to tell me if you keep RT, you're going to be able to recruit well, both with freshmen and the portal, and keep all of your assistants, I think that's going to culminate into building a strong program builder, along with having the Moody Center, having the resources at your fingertips with NIL. That's going to be the recipe for success. Whoever they decide to go with is factoring those things to the equation.
I think it's something like you guys said, and those are all kind of the ingredients as Ryan stated, and the personas as Austin and Colin laid out, and just phenomenal examples. I guess to in terms of the previous person that was the head coach and kind of put us in this situation, as we are recording today, Chris Beard has been announced as the new head coach at Ole Miss. And upon hearing that, it's just really, really just kind of interesting. I think to a lot of Texas fans, as I gauge reaction on social media, of course, and as well as the comment section on Ole Miss, which they probably should have turned off. But I am really curious to see the introductory press conference and how that plays out. And Colin kind of alluded to it earlier, just with the wrist slap basis. I want to be clear here because I don't want anybody freaking suing me for defamation of character. But he was, the charges were dropped. We get all that. But, again, and I've said this on this channel before myself, and this is where I'm coming from. Oftentimes in DV cases, the victim will drop the charges. That is very, 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 very common. And you cannot negate the police report and any of those things. And Texas had to do what they had to do to determine that he was unfit to remain as head coach. For anybody that asks why he was fired instead of suspended and why we can't just go back. I hope you understand the PR and the optics of that long term for what matters to Texas. Ole Miss said they conducted their own investigation. What matters to them could be different. Where do y'all fall on all this? I mean, for me, it's just like, to come right back is it's crazy to me, honestly.
Yeah, me personally.
Go back to my. Sorry, go ahead, Austin.
No, you got it. Go for it. Go for it.
I think it goes back to my analogy. It's 5 minutes for fighting, right? Like it's the old hockey term, but quite literally it was half a season. And you know what? It was not the publicity and the press that the University of Texas expects out of a head coach. But frankly, we've seen a lot of other things out of Ole Miss that, whether it's NCAA, whether it's other things, is it surprising to me? Not really. So yeah, to your point, I'm interested in hearing how the press conference goes. But I mean, it's a new chapter already. It's really quick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think probably a month or two ago, I remember texting you guys, and I was like, this guy's gonna be coaching at a P5 before 2023 season begins. I mean, it's just he's too good of a basketball coach for a program, despite who they are, to not take a chance on him, especially when the charges were dropped. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, I think all of us, with a clear head in mind, if we didn't know anything that was going on, would we have preferred Chris Beard to stay the head coach and RT stay as an assistant? Yeah, we would all agree and be like, yes, this team will reach their full potential with that guy at the helm. But things happen. We roll with the punches, and so does the program. But am I surprised? No. Am I surprised it's Ole Miss? No. Will I be surprised if Ole Miss is really good? No, especially not, with being in the SEC. And, oh, look, who moves to the SEC next year? Texas does. So there's going to be plenty of matchups. The guy's just won everywhere he's gone. And it's unfortunate that Texas will have to see him multiple times a year. But like I said, will I be shocked if Ole Miss is a perennial power one day? No. Will I be shocked if they make the NCAA tournament next year? No. I just until he proves me otherwise in his coaching ability. I mean, the man knows how to win college basketball games, and you can think whatever you want, but that's just a fact.
Ryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a what could have been situation, right? You talk about a grown individual putting herself in that situation the night before a game too. At that, I mean, you let down the players first and foremost. You let down the administration, Del Conte, for going to that press conference and saying, we have our guy, this is him, and they had the full faith in that. And to be a grad at UT and have all that let down just with the situation, regardless of what did or did not happen, and just putting yourself in that spot. We all know as grown individuals, you just don't put yourself in those situations when they come up. And so it was unfortunate from that standpoint, because what could have been is, like we talked about earlier, he had figured it out. He had figured out how to do the portal, how NIL worked, how to recruit the young guns. And he was working towards something great with keeping RT on staff, keeping everyone else on staff. And for him to come back so quick is like, yeah, they're just kind of throwing everything out the window with, their due diligence and making sure it's there. But that's the biggest thing for me. I think the biggest takeaway is, what could have been if he, would have put himself in a better situation. But, I hope he looks back and he's seeing the success the team's having, and that he's not being a part of it. That's going to eat him up, for a while. So, other than that, just disappointing is the word like Austin used.
Yeah, and we'll leave it there because that's not our basketball team. He's not our basketball coach anymore. And thankful for the players and the staff and the people he hired and the guys he recruited and brought in. I think it's okay to say that. And as Austin acknowledged his basketball mind, he will be successful as a basketball coach. That's what he does. I have no doubt about that. But the way that, optics, PR, everything matters in 2023. And he's going to have to still answer for that when he goes and recruits certain guys and things that get asked. And some people will care, some people won't. But as we kind of, progress at this conversation, I think this is a place where we do need to follow up, guys, after the season's over, after we've digested the tournament and see really, to me, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong if you disagree, I think there's two paths, either the short-term contract or national search. That includes Rodney Terry. I think, out of fairness to everybody, I think those are kind of the two different paths that there are. But guys, I know we spent a lot of time breaking all this down, but as Colin said offline, it's Christmas in March. Let us know in the comments how you feel about all the Texas stuff. We just kind of had a family meeting for Texas. But on the other video where we broke everything down, let us know your picks. Who's right, who's wrong, what aged well, what didn't age well, the whole bit. We're here to talk. We'll be back with more. Sign up for the tournament, the bracket contest, Last Stand Hats, Fanatic Perspective on ESPN. Fanatic Perspective Subs is the name of the group. Tag me, tag Last Stand Hats. LastStandHats.com/Fanatic. Fanatic10 at checkout is the sponsor. $50 for whoever wins the bracket tournament to use on LastStandHats.com. Right in time for spring ball, which is April 15th. So you can get a hat, go out there looking fresh. You trying to see Arch, you trying to see Quinn, you trying to see Cedric Baxter Jr., who Ryan told me he looks like a 28-year-old man already, looking buff in the pads. Pause. But we are going out there. We're going to look, just fly with LastStandHats.com/Fanatic. Ryan, Austin, Colin, thank you guys so much. Thank y'all so much. It's good to be back. I'm glad we got to do this. It's great for me and therapy for me. And y'all remember, horns always up.